America.
the small. Lay a big hit and pass a kick the ball. This game is for us all. From Seattle down toward the Keys, this game is you, this game is me. Cast dogs and steer, be the tree. This game is America, so sing it loud with me. College football forever. College football forever. Downtown LA, Starkville sit. 1 week you're up next, take a dip. Run the rock or let it rip. This game is America. All say, can you sing it with me?
We just stepped on her face with a hot-tail moving across her nose. Whoa, Nelly!
College football forever. College football forever. College football forever. College football forever.
College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered, beginning right now.
And we welcome you. It is another installment of JC and Morgan, part of the College Football Forever umbrella and associated with the Chief Sports app. He is JC Shurburtt, our producer that you don't see at the moment, but working diligently behind the controls is the Mad Dog Phil Mullinax. I'm Mike Morgan. We say good morning to those of you that watch and listen live, and we say good afternoon, good evening, good insomnia, whatever the case may be when you guys, many of you listen at your own convenience and watch at your own convenience on all the platforms from YouTube to Facebook to X to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. You get it. If you want it, it's here. We bring it to you each and every week. And we've been guest heavy. We're going no guest today. We've also been lengthy. And this is I'm always cognizant of things, JC, in our world of broadcasting and, of course, your world of the written word as well. We don't have an ombudsman. Is that how you say that? I've always thought that's one of the funniest words in the English language. An ombudsman is a guy who, like, ESPN used to have one. I can't remember his name, but he was in charge of critiquing, constructive criticism of his own network. So if ESPN did something that he didn't agree with, he would say that. So I'm going to play the role of our ombudsman and say, because we love college football and talking ball as much as we do, we correct me if I'm wrong, JC, we enjoy the hell out of doing this. Like, we're not doing this because, we're making Elon Musk money. We're doing this because we love doing it. We're in our 10th year of doing it. We love doing it. And when we get off on topics, we go long, man. We got a lot to say. But I want to tighten it up. We're going to do this in 85 minutes or less, JC. Maybe even quicker than that. By golly, we're going to go a little bit of hurry up because sometimes the attention span can be a little bit wavering, right? So we're going to try to keep it a little bit tighter.
Absolutely. I'm all fired up about that, to be honest. And being a little tighter and less wordy. But, I will say this in our defense, Mike. The off season, there used to be this type of roller coaster called a wild mouse. And it was awful. You basically just go up about 50 feet in the air and then make really hard, jerky turns and then have a little dip at the end. Made my head hurt. But this has been a wild mouse off season for college football because just when you think things are going in one direction, they go another.
Yeah.
And so that naturally leads to a lot of discussion because you're not only having to go back and discuss things that you've already discussed in the previous episode, but you have to rediscuss it because things have changed. And then there's 10 new angles to consider. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, brevity, I believe, is the key. And it's an easier listen for our fans sitting out there across the country.
I will say this. College football has given all of us who cover it a gift. There simply is no off season. There are simply massive things to talk about every time out. So maybe when we first started doing this nine years ago, in the dog days of summer, it would be okay. Here's the top 10 running backs in the SEC according to Lindy's. Man, we don't have time to get to that kind of stuff. There's too many important things that are going on. And we'll get to some of those. And we'll have some fun with summer-type conversations. For example, it got me to thinking, JC, because I was watching some of the College World Series, which is such a great event in Omaha. And again, we talk football on this show, but most of us are fans of multiple sports. I've been fortunate to be in Omaha 3 times to call some of those games. And it's such a special event and a special place to be. But something happened yesterday that is historic, and I'll tell you how it relates to football. Arkansas and LSU are going to play for the right to go to the championship versus the winner of Coastal Carolina and Louisville, which means an SEC team will be in the finals of Omaha now for 17 out of 18 years. Not just the World Series, not just the field of 8, but the championship. 17 out of 18 years. Just unprecedented stuff. In college football, the SEC had a streak going like that. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 years, 2023, 2024, what happened? Well, Ohio State beat Notre Dame last year, and Michigan beat Washington the year before. What's missing from those 2 games, JC?
An SEC team.
An SEC team. So, I mean, conceivably, what is the world going to fall off its axis if the SEC goes 3 consecutive years without playing in the national championship game? It might. It might be Armageddon. It could be just absolute craziness, but it doesn't happen very often, obviously. We'll see if that is the case again this year. We'll also go over the heat meter because – do you know something else happened in the SEC that rarely happens last year? JC, not a single coach got fired. 16 of them.
How about that?
Clark Lee, not only did he keep his job, he won 5 more games. He could run for mayor right now in Nashville.
I don't know if Andy has that many fans, Mike.
Well, maybe not mayor.
Well, I mean, I'd vote for him because the mayor of Nashville is a crazy person. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a story for another time. Billy Napier. I don't think they're not voting for him for mayor. In fact, they could still. He's back on the hot seat. Promise you that. But he did enough to improve and keep his job. And of course, six-pack Sam Pittman, he kept his job. So all the 3 guys that were on the hot seat, they all won more games they did the year before. They all kept their jobs. They all avoided an exorbitant buyout, which all of them are 8 figures plus right now. But this year, and we'll go over it, I'm telling you, there's about a half a dozen guys in the SEC whose seat can get very warm. So we just had a calm year. We just had an aberration where nobody got fired. I think you're going to see multiple coaches get the ziggy, as Dick Vitale used to say, after this year.
Yeah, I definitely could see that happening. And I think this house settlement thing, and gosh, there was we hear fake numbers sometimes about sports and NIL, and then we hear real numbers. Missouri, because everything's in house, you can do a FOIA for it and get the money. Missouri spent $31 million as an athletic department NIL wise last year, according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch in a report I read earlier. So, with revenue share and with that money having to come internally, ADs are making the decision. Well, whereas maybe 10 years ago, they'd be fired immediately.
Right.
Even the late 2010s too, they weren't giving coaches 3 years to get things done. But I think everybody kind of cooler heads prevailed financially. And I think too, a lot of times ADs who are not the most powerful people on campus, despite what most people think, they get pressure from donors to go ahead and fire. And the donors are it's an easier sell to donors to go, well, why don't, instead of you donating 10 million to put on the log on the fire for this buyout, why don't we just do 2 and let's just go get some players and see what he can do with talent. And that's a lot of what happened in a lot of sports this past year across the country. In the SEC specifically, though, as you mentioned, maybe Sam Pittman in Arkansas, it was a holdover because they didn't want to, because he had a clause, which is why I love Sam Pittman, where if he didn't get to a certain amount of wins or get to a bowl, he took less for the buyout. He bet on himself and won.
Right.
And so maybe Arkansas in another world, they would have fired him. Maybe Billy Napier gets fired mid-season because there for a while it was fire them as quickly as possible so you can get the jump on the next guy. But they all, all the folks that had something to worry about won enough games. I mean, you mentioned Clark Lee. That was probably one of the, least talked about, but interesting storylines in college football last year. Now, they did talk about him for a few weeks, but Vandy was very, very competitive, and we've talked about Georgia Tech a couple of times. All the ACC people that cover the ACC have Georgia Tech as a sleeper. Well, Vanderbilt beat the snot out of them in the Birmingham Bowl, 35-13. And for those two teams, the bowl mattered, So in a game that mattered, they beat Georgia Tech's butt. So,
yeah, sure did.
So, yeah, everybody deserved it. It was a stability. And you had some folks at some places like A&M where, if that were Jimbo again and they had kept him, he may have gotten fired. I mean, I'm not saying the timing has to do with a lot of it, but stability. It was a stable deal, and away we go. But that usually means the following year there's some changes.
Right. The calm before the storm. Stability only lasts so long in college football, so I think it could be quite turbulent this year. And the name I didn't mention because he's not in the SEC, Lincoln Riley, he got like a $70 million buyout. He's got like a Jimbo type deal. Otherwise, who knows what the talk might have been at Southern Cal, because they actually regressed last year. They did not improve like the other coaches I mentioned. It's a huge year for him. In that fan base, no doubt about that. We're 66 days away from the start of college football in earnest. Week 0 right around the corner. Good morning, Micah, James, Andy, Craig, and the rest of you on chat row that are watching live. We'll get to some of your questions or comments as well. But coming up next, it'll be the JC5 and, again, the heat meter. We, of course, are powered and presented by Advocare. As you know, we've got a way for you folks out there. This is not a one-time discount, by the way, the 20% off if you use promo code, my name in the promo code, Mike Morgan. That's anytime you order. So when you reorder, and you'll want to reorder, when you get Spark, which I use every morning for the last 12 years, when you get Rehydrate, which I needed yesterday on the golf course to get me through some hard, hot heat, it's better than Gatorade. No none of that heavy sugar and the big wall that you hit. They've got every type of product imaginable. Healthy skin, how to sleep better. One of our listeners asked about some of the products, how to sleep better. Just order them. Go to avocare.com. And again, the promo code Mike Morgan will save you 20%, not just today, but every day, every order. Keep on going, keep on going. We'll keep on going with the JC5. On the other side of this timeout is JC and Morgan.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks!
Hey folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a mid-Atlantic based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable, because this movement is just beginning.
This is JC and Morgan
on the Chief Sports Network.
College football forever.
And welcome back. It is time now for the award-winning, the morale-boosting, the informative, I'm running out of superlatives to describe it. I get giddy when we have it. It's my highlight of the week. I have no idea what questions are coming. They've been hermetically sealed in an envelope somewhere near Chicago, Illinois, and then they are released live on this program. It's time now for the JC5.
For the top topics in the sport, we bring the JC5. Number 1.
All right, Mike, I'm going to throw 4 defunct rivalries out, and you can only pick one to revive.
Okay.
All right. Michigan, Notre Dame, Kansas, Missouri, Bedlam, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, or the Backyard Brawl, West Virginia and Pitt.
Oh,
you're in triage, man. You can only save one.
I know. And you're not God. You have to heal the sick, no matter if they're a president or if they're a sanitation worker. I will go Michigan, Notre Dame. Look, the other ones, I mean, Kansas, Missouri in basketball excites me. Kansas, Missouri in football doesn't do a whole lot for me. Oklahoma State, I like, although unfortunately it's been really one-sided. And West Virginia, Pitt, it's good. We just need both those teams to be better for that to raise to the level of what I'm going to pick, Michigan, Notre Dame. And for two reasons. Number one, usually those teams are pretty doggone good. So you have that. You have we kind of look at Notre Dame almost like a de facto Big Ten program, although they have that loosely connected association with the ACC, which nobody quite understands. And furthermore, I need Notre Dame to have quality opponents. You know, they've got the inside track to the playoff. That's going to remain the case. I think they're going to make it more times than not when it's 16. So I'll say Michigan, Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot of history there too, and some great games
Great
in the
history.
80s.
Yeah.
Lou Holtz, I just tell you this right now. Bo Schembechler's not going to come into this house and beat the Irish today. I tell you that right. If he wants to beat me, tell him to meet me at the 50-yard line. Bo Schembechler, I tell you what right now.
Well, now Lou wants to fight Ryan Day, which I would pay to see.
Lou's getting on up there, but my money would be on him. He'd probably rabbit punch him in the head.
Oh, he would do something. Yeah, I mean, groin, hair pull, eye poke. Well, Lou doesn't play around. All right, number two.
All right, will LSU snap their bizarre 5-game losing streak in openers this year when they travel to, I guess, the Battle of Death Valley? They travel to the upstate South Carolina, Death Valley, and Clemson.
I have a hard time. Yeah, I love this because every time you put me on the spot. I thought the first one was, for me, kind of a softball. This one is not. This one, you're head hunting. You're buzzing the tower. To me, it's a pick'em game. If this was neutral field, I would go LSU. It's in Death Valley. And so I'll give Clemson a slight edge. I'll give Clemson. I keep believing that LSU is going to turn the corner. More on Brian Kelly when we get to our heat meter segment. But if he doesn't win this game, I don't know if they turn the corner. And I get it. It's not a conference game. An SEC team that loses 2 is still going to get in the playoff. Heck, maybe even a 3-loss team gets in this year, unlike last year. But I just think the rancor, the vitriol, the toxic nature of what it's going to be for Brian Kelly, if they go ahead and they get on that charter from that game at Death Valley and head back to Baton Rouge, I just think it's going to be so ugly. So I want to say LSU from the standpoint of I'm a Brian Kelly fan in some respects. I respect Brian Kelly. Let me say that. Fan's a little strong. I respect Brian Kelly. And I think Brian Kelly is getting a little bit of a raw deal in that he hasn't done a terrible job. But I also know the reality. I talk about this all the time. He followed 3 consecutive coaches who won a national championship. One's the GOAT. 2 others are hardly the GOAT. When Ed Orgeron and Les Miles can win a national title, you're expected to win one at LSU. So I'll take, and it's subject to change. We're 66 days from week 0, which means we're 73 from week 1. I'm going to take Clemson right now. I'm gonna reserve the right to change that.
Number 3.
Okay, so Gunnar Stockton, Georgia's quarterback.
I noticed you avoided a prediction on that.
I don't know what to think about that football game. It's at night. Clemson
you left me out to hang and dry over there.
Clemson doesn't have a whole lot of home night games. It's not night. It's going to be bonkers. It's the marquee game. I'd have to dig into the matchups, Clemson, but
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So we think LSU is going to have a better defensive line because of what they did in the portal and a better defense. We know Clemson's going to have a good defensive line. We think LSU is going to be able to replace the talent they lost at receiver because they seem to just do it every year. But we know Clemson's got 3 stud receivers, and that's one I'm going to have to stew on for a while because there is the the college football gods aspect of it, where LSU's due to pull one of these out. It's not like they've been getting blown out in openers either. They've played good football teams.
Yeah.
But it just hadn't worked out for whatever reason.
And I don't want to penalize LSU for actually scheduling a quality opponent every year. Like, that's the other thing. I can, you know how I put an end to this losing streak if I'm LSU? I do what most every other SEC school does, and I schedule a cupcake in week 1. So I don't want to go ahead and pile on the team that continually goes out of its way to schedule a quality opponent in week 1.
Yeah, none of them, I don't think any, except for the Mississippi State game in the pandemic year, none of them have been in Baton Rouge either. They've either been in New Orleans, Orlando. Last year was in Vegas. This is on the road.
Yeah.
So, there's reasons for that, but nobody ever provides any subtext or context these days. It's just they've lost 5 straight. So
right.
We'll see what happens. All right, number 3, since we've already had the number, Gunnar Stockton is ranked around 13th to 14th in these SEC quarterback rankings. It's list season, as we know. Would you go without looking at the whole list? Because it is difficult. Does that feel low, too low, or just about right? I can't imagine it's too high.
It feels like what every list does. Now, we've actually seen Gunnar Stockton in a significant playoff game, and I thought fared well in it. Made some plays, particularly with his feet. A lot of times these lists will take a guy, for example, you obviously were all over Lenore Sellers last year. Well, the American public wasn't, because they didn't see him. So they weren't going to put him high on any quarterback list, because they don't project guys based on recruiting rankings or what they hear out of fall camp. They base these rankings, these lists, on what they've seen. And what they've seen is Lenore Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, enough of Arch Manning combined with the hype to feel really good about him. They've heard enough of Mateer, if they haven't actually seen him and what he did at another stop, right? I mean, I can go on and on and on in that top 10. It's all proven commodities. And this year, Gunnar Stockton comes in to an SEC with those type of commodities where he's an unproven commodity. He's a do you want to buy low and sell high type of commodity. Same thing with Joey Aguilar of Tennessee. Same thing with Ty Simpson of Alabama, which, again, sends me back to when is the last time you've seen Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama? None of them have a quarterback ranked in the top 10 preseason in their own conference. That's unheard of. But that is the deal, because they're all unproven at this level. And some people just don't think Joey Aguilar is worth a damn anyway, even though he has experience at other places. I don't have an opinion on that, because I'll be honest, I haven't seen reps of him at all. I mean, I will eventually, but for now, I don't know. Look, I think Gunnar Stockton, in that Mike Bobo offense, he's not going to be asked to throw for 4,000. This isn't going to be 2 years ago with Carson Beck leading the league in passing. This is going to be a little more old school Kirby, 2 tight end, ground and pound, throw when you need to, make plays with your legs when you need to, and dominating defense. So is he going to be like on top of the passer rating board? Probably not. Is he a top 10 quarterback? I think he can be. I actually think Gunnar Stockton has got all the tools to be, because some of these guys on that top 10 list, JC, are going to turn out to be fraudulent. They are going to either dip from previous years, a la Carson Beck, or they're just not going to be that good anyway. So, yeah, I'll put Stockton in my top 10, but he's not in the top 5 by any stretch, which is, again, for Georgia, a little bit unusual.
Number 4.
All right, you mentioned the Tennessee Volunteers. So, looking at the ESPN FPI, which I think is, leaves a lot to be desired, and but also looking at the Vegas over-under, which I put stock in, their over-under for total wins is still around 8.5, in some cases 9. They're the 4th highest FPI team that could win the SEC this year. I like their schedule to a certain extent, but when you talk to like real Tennessee people, there's a lot of concerns They don't fans are going to hope and be positive, but there's some concerns here, especially at wide receiver. And I like Joey Aguilar from what I saw at him at App State. He was a kind of a sneaky pick to do well at UCLA this year for me, where I'm coming from. But it's kind of a weird situation because no spring practice, and he's just thrown in there. I mean, that system's not that hard. It's basically hey 1-1-1. But your thoughts on Tennessee over under 8.5?
Again, I don't know what I have in Joey Aguilar. Nico, for all his flaws, like I would have bet that Nico would have had a better 25 than 24. And combine that with the fact that offense under Josh Heupel, not only has it been consistently good, it's been adaptable. Remember when they had Hendon Hooker, who was about as accurate as any passer in the country, they threw the ball over the yard. Last year, they didn't have that with Nico, so what'd they do? They just gashed people on the ground. That speaks volumes to me as an offensive coach, which is clearly what Heupel is. He's not married to one phase of the game. He's not married to one particular playbook. He plays to his personnel, and I think they're going to have to do that this year. Defensively, they lose one of the top pass rushers in the country in Pierce. He's now an Atlanta Falcon. They lost their running back, who was awfully special. I think 8-4 is real possible for Tennessee, JC. So I'll take the under. I'll take the under on that. We're not going to put you on the spot on any of these, are we?
I'll say something briefly. Peyton Lewis is replacing Sampson, their running back.
Yeah.
Loved him out of high school in Virginia. He's a redshirt freshman. So I think they will be able to run the ball if they can replace their offensive lineman. They're also looking at starting a true freshman, David Sanders Jr. at left tackle, and they don't have much depth at tackle. That's in addition to the receiver issues and a new quarterback. Defensively, they do return a lot of good players, but I think a couple of safeties walked out the door in the portal or whatever. Tennessee's going to be a trendy pick to be not as good this year. But I do like the way the schedule sets up. I do think Josh Heupel is not just he's a different head coach than maybe a Mike Leach, which is kind of where his system originated from. And that if he has to run it and play defense to win games, he will. And I think that was impressive. That was the most impressive thing about Tennessee last year is that they just kind of won anyway. There were no style points there. Another guy I did want to point out, speaking of Georgia, and you mentioned Mike Bobo, I do think they're going to run the ball. I think Frazier and then the kid McCoy they got in the portal from Illinois is going to be part of that along with Stockton. But keep an eye on Noah Brown, the transfer from Texas A&M. Mike Bobo likes to run it, and then drop a bomb on you. That's Georgia's. Look at the second half of the Alabama game last year. Mm-hmm. This guy's 6'6" and can run. A&M couldn't get him the ball a lot of the times last year. He goes to Georgia. I think that was a sneaky good pickup. So Peyton Lewis, Noah Brown, two sleepers to watch from JC Shurburtt here on the SEC. Speaking of sleepers, are we sleeping on Oregon?
This is number 5.
Yeah, this is number 5. I think he already played 5.
Did he play 5?
I don't know.
How about we do it again, Phil? I like to hear.
My short-term memory sucks.
We pay a lot for Mr. Announcer. There we go.
Thank you.
It's not officially. It's like a scorecard that hasn't been filled out after a golf tournament.
Oregon was one of the least hyped number 1 ranked teams and undefeated teams during the regular season last year. It's like they went and won the Big Ten. Everybody's like, ooh, Oregon. And then one afternoon in Pasadena, we just all collectively forgot about the Ducks. They recruit well. They do well in the portal. They have talent. I'm looking at it. I think a lot of this is because they didn't get a portal quarterback this year, like a Dylan Gabriel or a Bo Nix. This guy came in the portal last year, Dante Moore, who started at UCLA as a true freshman, talented guy. Are we sleeping on them, or is this going to be a take a step back year for the Ducks?
If we're sleeping on them, it means we're sleeping on Dante Moore, who some people even have as a dark horse Heisman candidate. You pointed out he already has started games at UCLA, but It's UCLA, right? So how many people were paying attention? Just like the last two quarterbacks come from Washington State. They've been pretty damn good, but who's paying attention to what's going on in Pullman? So, look, Oregon, here's what I know about Oregon without taking a deep dive on a too deep or anything else. They're going to have athletes. They're going to have dudes on both sides of the ball, right? So Dylan Gabriel was clearly, I don't care if that kid ever plays a down in the NFL. He was a very good college quarterback. And last year, he put together a Heisman type season for the Ducks. It would be hard for me to expect that level of production again from the quarterback spot. But can Oregon make a playoff again? Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. The Big Ten will likely have another 4 teams in the playoff. And if they've got 4, everybody's going to put Ohio State down and everybody's going to put Penn State down. I'm not expecting Indiana to do what they did again last year. Are you? And then Michigan. Michigan was the 4th worst passing team in America last year. The only 3 teams that were more just futile throwing the ball were the service academies. Okay. Army, Navy, and Air Force. Even if they have 100% improvement there, I don't know. So, I mean, Oregon could quietly, Justin Earmuffs, I know we got a big Michigan fan that listens, they could quietly supplant Michigan if the Wolverines aren't careful as like one of those top 3 Big Ten teams every year that you can pretty much put down in ink that they're going to be playoff teams. So I certainly think that Oregon, it could be in very good shape for the playoff.
Yeah, they go to Northwestern. I don't think Northwestern
probably not
State
the top of the schedule. Yeah,
that's the big noon kickoff for September 13th. They do play at Beaver Stadium against Penn State. They go at Rutgers and they go at Iowa. And then Thanksgiving weekend, they play the hated Washington Huskies. So, I don't know. Their schedule doesn't look as, bad as or tough as last year. I will give you a player too, since we're talking player. 2 players from Oregon. Mackay Hughes, running back, transfer portal guy from Tulane, 1,401 yards, 15 touchdowns last year for the Green Wave. Big time player, in my opinion, at running back that they got. He'll start for them. Also, true freshman DeCorian Moore that they plucked out of Texas. He's a Ryan Williams type of guy. I'm not predicting Ryan Williams highlights, but I predict that you will, barring injury, hear his name when they're going through the Ducks touchdowns and stuff. Let's just say you'll hear DeCorian Moore's name this year.
Okay. Something to look forward to in Eugene. No doubt. That's still a place that's on my bucket list, is Outson Stadium. It's one of the few I have not been to for a game and would love to get to at some point.
I've been there. I've been on the field for a camp, but not been for a game.
How beautiful is the area?
Eugene, very pretty.
Yeah.
Corvallis is pretty too. People don't get this. Corvallis is actually only about 20 miles from Eugene. They're both near the capital of Salem, Oregon. It's not in Portland. People think it's in Portland. It's not in Portland. It's about halfway down the old West Coast there. But they have tsunami warning alarms on that on the beach near Corvallis and
nice.
Eugene. So, but yeah, it's gorgeous, man. It's the facilities at University of Oregon are all they're cracked up to be. The track stadium is majestic, but Outson sits kind of up on a hill and then down in a hole, if that makes any sense. So
I'm sure they'll stay within their NIL boundaries and $20.5 million as per the House case settlement
to the penny.
Yeah, I mean, Nike would never go above and beyond that or find a way to get those funds out.
Maybe they'll go Dumb and Dumber and give them a briefcase of IOUs. That's better than money, sir. Those are IOUs. Hey,
Samsonite.
If they're from Phil Knight, I'd take them.
Yeah, it feels good for it. He can cover it. All right, when we come back, we will cover the heat index. Also, Group 5 John is at it again. He's got the list of the new coaches in one particular conference that is the Sun Belt. Is that the Sun Belt? Did we go over the Sun Belt last week? No, we didn't go to the
No,
Sun Belt. Yeah,
American last week.
we did the American last week. He's got the 3 new Sun Belt coaches. App State, Marshall, and Southern Miss all had to go fishing for a coach. Group 5 John will tell you about that. We are powered by Advocare, advocare.com. Enter the promo code. Save yourself 20% on all types of items, as well as Nest and Wild, nestandwild.com, home of the most comfortable mattress on the planet, mailed to your door within days. You won't do any better than Nest and Wild, nestandwild.com. Final segment of JC and Morgan coming up.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks!
Hey folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a mid-Atlantic based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable, because this movement is just beginning.
This is JC and Morgan
on the Chief Sports Network.
College football forever.
Okay, we're staying up tempo. It is the final segment of JC and Morgan. JC Shurburtt, Mike Morgan with you. Our producer is the Mad Dog, Phil Molinax. We are presented and powered by Advocare, advocare.com. You can also check out the website now.
Yes.
collegefootballforever.com. Hit the JC and Morgan tab, and it's looking damn good, I must say.
Yeah. JC and Morgan tab, bloggers. Some bloggers. It's still a little under construction, but we have highlights from our show, content lists, all that good stuff. And yeah, there's a tab there for JC and Morgan. Absolutely. It's part of the Chief family, but certainly websites these days sometimes take a little while, but I think that I think we're getting there with the product, and all of that will also be available where our show is right now on the Chief Sports app soon. So all the website content will also be on the app, and that's a free download on Apple and Google Play. So
there you go. And eventually we'll have a little email tab. As I always mention, I know probably 99% of you can't necessarily watch the show live on YouTube, although we love those that do, and we'll get to some comments on the chat box. So for those that can't ask questions when we're on live, you can always eventually go to the website and send any email questions or comments you might have. and we'll get back to the old fan mail segment that we used to do as part of the show. We try to squeeze it all in, and today we're going to squeeze in an extra segment, the heat meter. JC, get your Tabasco out. Last night I had some sushi. You know what I like to do? Dip it in the sriracha. Soy sauce I can live with or without, but the sriracha, man, that red stuff brings some heat. We're bringing some spice to the heat meter this year. I mentioned last year there were 3 coaches that were like Vegas favorites to get fired. Billy Napier was number 1, Sam Pittman was number 2, and Clark Lee wasn't far behind. Fair or unfair, it doesn't matter. That's what people were saying, and you could get pretty good odds on those 3 guys. Well, now, after a year where nobody was fired, because all those guys wound up winning more games, if you can believe it. They all had significant improvements and victory. So nobody had to pay out an exorbitant buyout. The 2 buyouts were just under $10 million. And one of them was Neil Brown at West Virginia. So just under 10 last year. This year, you can expect, I think, some 8-figure buyouts. So I was looking at the SEC Media Day schedule, JC, and I mentioned we're 66 days from week 0. We're less than a month away from SEC Media Days in Atlanta. So I broke it down by day. July 14th on a Monday, Brian Kelly will be one of the 4 coaches of LSU. Hot. Tuesday, it'll be Hugh Freeze of Auburn. Hot. Wednesday, they're going to have to install some extra fans because it's Billy Napier and Kalen DeBoer. What? You can't put Kalen DeBoer in a hot seat in year 2? Tell Alabama fans that. And then on Thursday, again, probably put another lump of coal on the fire, Sam Pittman and Mark Stoops of Kentucky. So I ask you, as we go one by one in no particular order, I'll just go by order of when they're showing up. On a scale of 1 to 5, the hot meter, the heat meter, first, Brian Kelly, who will be at the podium in some sort of accent. We believe it'll be non-Cajun. July 14th, Brian Kelly, 0 to 5 on the heat meter.
I'm going to go 3 with him. He's got now, had he not had the first year that he did when they surprisingly won the West to beat Alabama with Jade, but then they had the Heisman Trophy or a future Heisman Trophy winner quarterback. Then I think I think it'd be a little hotter. But people say he's not a cultural fit at LSU or whatever, but the only coach that's coached LSU since Curly freaking Hallman, who they got from Southern Miss in the mid-'90s, who was a disaster, has been Ed Orgeron. I mean, you think that school, they've done quite well hiring guys out of the Midwest. Jerry DiNardo, Midwest. Nick Saban, Midwest. Les Miles, Midwest. Michigan man.
Yeah.
Then there's Coach O. And then Brian Kelly. So they kind of went back to the well with this guy. And he's won everywhere at all. I'm with you. I respect him. Probably not a guy I'd have a beer with, or not my favorite personality out there and all that. But the other part of it is I think the number 1 player, he may be in the country. His name's Lamar Brown, stud, in-state guy. In recruiting, it looks like he's heading to A&M at last time. That's the trend. That's an in-state player that they don't lose. So there's been some recruiting stuff there too that the fans aren't happy about. But I'm going to go with 3 because they start off and beat Clemson, and then they win that Florida game, and they're undefeated heading into October with the talent they got, which I do think should improve their defense, and I love their D coordinator. They get back to playing D, and they're winning games. They're going to forget all about everything else.
So you got them at a 3. What if they lose to Clemson?
It goes up to about a 3.5, 4. And if you lose to Florida too, I wouldn't want to be.
It's flammable at that point.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if it's too much to even recover from. Because like I said, that's when you start eating your own. That's when it becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy of sorts. Okay, so we'll put a 3 down for Kelly. Hugh Freeze of Auburn. everybody loved the hire. I love the hire. Hadn't been able to get a quarterback. Feels like they have that solved. Got great wide receivers on the Plains. Great wide receivers. So where does Hugh Freeze stand right now on the heat meter?
I think their talent level is up, and the Brian Harsin era was a disaster for them. There was very little good recruiting that took place. Talk about a cultural fit. I don't think that you can recruit at Auburn like you did at Boise. It's just totally different universes. But their talent is young. I mean, you do have great receivers, but the bulk of Auburn, what's going to bring Auburn back to national relevance, I think a lot of those players are young. Even Jackson Arnold is a redshirt sophomore, assuming he's the quarterback. You want to talk about an opener, though, that scares everybody. Remember last year we were talking about Dave Aranda getting fired?
Yeah.
It's high times in Baylor now. They think they're going to be really good. And
they went 8-4 last year.
Yeah, they were pretty good. They were actually aligned. Speaking of LSU, they were a lined favorite in the Texas Bowl.
Right.
Now that was easy money for me because I thought LSU would stomp them, and they did. But so look, that's a Friday night in Waco, and the rare chance Baylor gets to take a bite out of an SEC team that should win but hasn't learned how to win yet, with a lot of new pieces. But I'm going to put Hugh's hot seat at 2 right now. But if we talk about upside, runway, ceiling, his ceiling's the highest, because we know Auburn, and I to their credit, they have been very patient, probably because they're doing really well in another sport right now. It's kind of they're kind of a basketball school right now, but they're not going to put up with many more losing seasons in a row down there. It's kind of like Florida with a historic run. And, the question you have to ask is, and I thought it was a great hire too, is, did Hugh Freeze kind of peak at Ole Miss and then Liberty, where everybody kind of wins is fool's gold? I mean, has he lost it or what? It doesn't always work out like we think it will. And there's a lot of examples of that, but we'll see what happens. I'm a little bullish on Auburn this year. It's a tough schedule. I don't know who scheduled that Baylor game, but go back.
I was just going to say
them.
2 things. As a fan, I love that game. And I will be absolutely dialed in to Auburn at Baylor Friday night, week 1. So it's kind of a standalone. That's the kind of matchups I wish we had more of. Mm-hmm. SEC, Big 12, and SEC school going on the road. So as a fan, kudos to both administrations. Now, I don't think Hugh Freeze had any say in that scheduling. I don't think he wanted any part of this. Whoever put that thing together, he's probably saying, what are you doing, man? JC's got me as a 2 on the heat meter. Do you realize if I lose this game, he's going to put me up at least a point and a half?
Yeah, if they don't win that one, I mean, it's going to get ugly. But I will point out, Auburn's schedule is tough. I mean, but they scheduled wisely otherwise. You got Ball State, South Alabama, and Mercer as your other 3 non-cons. They go to Oklahoma. They go to A&M. They play Georgia at Jordan-Hare. They play Alabama at Jordan-Hare. But they also go to Arkansas, and then they play Kentucky at home, and they're at Vandy, and they got Missouri at home. So you see some of the pitfalls, but you also see, well, in certain universes, there are a lot of winnable games, and we know. Heck, 2 years ago, they should have beaten Alabama at home and had Georgia on the ropes too. So they do play well at home. So we'll see. His heat meter probably would go up to about a 3 or 4 if he loses to Baylor. But I see some upside here if they can survive. Just for example, real quick, let's say they lose to Baylor. They beat Ball State and South Alabama. They lose at Oklahoma and they lose at A&M, and they're 2-3 going into the bye week.
Oh gosh,
there's going to be toxicity, fire him. If they get through that, though, you could see a scenario, because it's Auburn and a young team, where they put it all together. They beat Georgia at home at night. They beat Missouri. They win at Arkansas. They beat Kentucky. They beat Vandy. They beat Mercer, and they're 8-3 heading into the game. 7-4. Because that would be 4 losses. right? No, 3. So they would be 8-3 heading into the Iron Bowl with a win over Georgia and revenge wins against Arkansas, Vandy, and all that. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But there is a universe.
You hit on a good point, which is 3 of their, I think, most pivotal games: Georgia, Missouri, Iron Bowl at home at Jordan-Hare. That helps. But man, that is no cakewalk in Waco. McLean Stadium will be very well represented on a Friday night in lovely Waco, Texas.
You basically have a Big 12 schedule, 3 Big 12 road games to start the year: at Baylor, at Oklahoma, at A&M, all in September. None of those places are easy to play.
Not at all.
But if they can get through that, the last 2, if they can be salvage one on the road, the last 2 road games, you don't know what's going to be going on in Arkansas on October 25th. And, I think it's always better to play Vandy late. We found that, last year kind of pointed to that because of depth. Vandy's a little beat up by the time you get to November and probably won't be as tricky. So,
all right, Billy Napier and Kalen DeBoer go day 3 in Atlanta SEC Media Days. Good old Billy Napier. They had the shovels out. The hole was dug. You had Joe Pesci and his brother ready to go out to the desert and put him in there. And then all of a sudden it was Pesci and his brother, Nicky, that got whacked from behind. Was it Nicky the brother? No, Nicky was Pesci. Who was his brother? Anyway, casino reference.
Yeah, Nicky.
Okay.
That was...
It's pretty rough scene, yeah.
And Phil Leotardo from the...
Phil Leotardo, yes.
Leotardo from the Sopranos was holding him and making him watch.
Yeah.
That guy's been in a ton of movies.
Yeah.
He's also the guy that got murdered in Goodfellas at the beginning.
Correct, yeah. You feeling strong? Come on.
Hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, you go get your shine box.
What are you going to do? Yeah, I don't shine shoes no more.
Good actor. He just died like a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, he's in all of them. But so Billy Napier, I would put right like in this moment, probably at a 2.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the season starts, 3, I would say, because when it gets down to brass tacks, fans are all right. All this all season night's over. If you go lose these games, we're going to turn. But he is on a high wire. The balancing thing they do where you stand up tall.
Oh yeah.
And anything that goes, and I don't think Florida fans are saying like playoff or bust this year. I think a good year out of Lagway, the offensive line would be as advertised, another good year on defense, and they'll stick with him because things will have been heading in the right direction. But Mike, they could be a very good football team next year again. And this schedule, Long Island and USF, those all should be wins, though USF sometimes can be tricky. But then they got to go to LSU and Miami. You think Auburn's got a tough September? Florida back-to-back trips to LSU and then down to Hard Rock Stadium against a Miami team that's going to be talented. I don't know if they'll be good, but talented. And then you have an off week, and then you got Texas and Texas A&M back-to-back. Oh, by the way, A&M's in College Station. Mississippi State comes in. Then you're off. And then you got Georgia. You go to Kroger Field. Kentucky may be in turmoil by that point. But then at Ole Miss, Tennessee comes to the Swamp late, and then FSU. So, there's some wins in there. But the start, there could be a 2-3, 2-4 start to this season. And at that point, it goes to about a 4. I'm going to say right now, though, since in my mind, we're like, what's it going to be at the start of the season? I'm going to give Napier a 3.
Yeah, there's a little bit, I would call it a mini love fest with Lagway, portal, recruiting, strong finish to last season. And you add all that up, and it's like, oh, yeah, Billy Napier. We always like that guy. I think that can change real fast. And one of the guys that covers that team is a radio analyst, does a show, Shane Matthews, part of the burgeoning Chief Sports Network. He comes right out and he'll tell you. He doesn't sugarcoat stuff, unlike a lot of school analysts who are just like, "Oh, they look good in practice, and everything's hunky dory, and ponies and ice cream." He'll say if they don't make the playoff, it's a disappointment. I think the expectation level is back over there, fairly or unfairly. Doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. And if with that roster and all the money that they have spent on it, and with a returning quarterback that's got a lot of hype behind him in Lagway, if they pull off an 8-4, I think that heat meter doubles from a 2 to a 4 at that point. But we'll see. We'll see.
At 8-4?
At 8, well, because 8-4 doesn't even sniff the playoff.
No.
I could conceivably see a 9-3 team from the SEC getting in this year after all the backlash of the 3 that missed out on it a year ago. 8-4, you're just going to some bowl game that most of the country doesn't care about.
I think they could be at 4 losses and be a good team by midseason. I will say this: Shane Matthews sat right here on the show and predicted Florida would win 8 last year. I didn't believe it.
Yeah,
and he was right. So
he was right.
I'll defer to him on the Gators, but
he's not predicting a playoff. He's
disappointing if they don't.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I like about Shane too. A prediction from a radio analyst of a school means nothing because they can't see the 4. They're supposed to say everything is hunky dory, right? When's the last time you saw an analyst from school go, "We're going to suck. We're going to suck," but you'll hear me on the call every Saturday on 92.9. The Buzz, home of Billy and the Hound Dog in the morning. But he just says if it's not a playoff, it's a disappointment. And I think a lot of people feel that way about that team. Like, if not now, when? When are you going to do it? Because they finally filled out that roster where it looks like a quality SEC roster again. The same could be said about Kalen DeBoer, who will also be at the podium on July 16th in Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame, which I recommend anybody goes to. Kalen DeBoer. Now, how could he possibly have a heat meter, JC? The man won 9 games in year 1. How could he possibly be on the heat meter?
It's Alabama.
Yep.
You can ask Bill Curry. You can ask Ray Perkins. I think Ray Perkins passed away recently.
You can ask Mike Shula.
Shula. You can ask Dennis Franchione, who left for A&M. He pulled a reverse bear. The reverse bear, if you start talking about pulling reverse bears in certain circles, you probably don't want to have that conversation. But the reverse bear was, Bear Bryant went from A&M to Alabama, and Fran went from Alabama to A&M, and it didn't work out at A&M, surprisingly enough.
You can ask Mike DuBose, JC. Mike DuBose won an SEC championship, and they fired him.
And got fired. I just, to me, it's a 4 because it's Alabama, and you also have to think about this too. You have two big legions of Alabama fans. You have the trust fund fan base that knows nothing but winning national championships, where one loss is a devastation. Because they're just not used to it. We all, as humans, things we aren't used to that are unpleasant, we react a little bit more, I guess emotionally with things that, than things we're used to. It's called getting tough. And so that's part of it, because it was a 17-year dynasty. It was one of the longest dynasties we've had in college football that will never be repeated, in my opinion. And so they're not used to this, number one. Then number two, if you go back before Saban, they weren't, and so this is the rest of their fan base. Not exactly the most patient bunch.
No, not exactly.
And you have a guy in Kalen DeBoer, and I see this in his recruiting, and I see it kind of in how he wins and how he's won a bunch of games. And it's not like how Nick Saban won games. He's going to go and out-evaluate people. They just flipped a quarterback from Iowa State, for example, who's a really good player. He's probably better than people think. They're going to develop, and then with Ryan Grubb coming in, they're going to run his offense and try to win games that way and try to be good on defense, just like he won at Washington, just like he won at Fresno State, just like he won at Sioux Falls. If you don't actually win, though, and you're below the standard, which is impossible for anybody to meet. It's impossible, right? And he did lose some games last year that, I mean, Oklahoma and Vandy, they should not have lost. The team that blew LSU out in Baton Rouge and beat Georgia, dominated them for a half, should not have lost by 3 touchdowns at Oklahoma and lost in Nashville under any circumstances, right? And certainly, I mean, the bowl game in the opt-out era, you never know. But that Michigan, that was an unpleasant feeling as well. They're not used to 4 losses. Saban never had 4 losses first year when he lost to Louisiana Monroe. But that was it. I mean, I think that what you could see, so I'm going to put it at a 4 right now. That may surprise you, but I think it's at a 4 to at least get back to standard. And you want to talk about a place where it's disappointing if it's not a playoff? Tuscaloosa. And they have a lot of good players coming back. His roster, we had SEC Michael Bratton on, and he's talking about Alabama as his favorite to win the SEC. I don't think that's off base. The quarterback's the one question mark, but I mean, look at Cade Klubnik last year at Clemson, similar guy to Ty Simpson. And then once he started going, he was going. So I think expectations should be high there, not based on anything else but this team, but based on the history and the fan base and that convergence of people that have never had anything to complain about and people that have very little patience throughout time. That's 90% of Alabama fans and boosters and people that care. And, you go 8-4, 9 and something like that, yeah.
As we were having this conversation, I was tempted to look up Kalen DeBoer's buyout, and then I realized something. It doesn't matter. It matters to the athletic director, and they have a good one over there in Tuscaloosa. But to the people that truly, to go back to your point about people give ADs way too much credit for the power they have versus the power they don't have. If for some reason a 9-4 with blowout loss to Oklahoma in a game you simply shouldn't have lost with everything that was on the line, and a loss at Vanderbilt in a close game, which you should never lose ever because it's Vanderbilt. In that type of season, if you followed up with something similar, while it would be good for 90-something% of teams in college football, it's not good enough at Bama, and the people will speak. In year 2, look, coaches have gotten fired after 2 years. They used to be, you could never fire a coach after 2 years. Yeah. Willie Taggart, hold my beer. Brian Harsin, hold my beer. I mean, there's a number of them that have gotten fired 2-3 years. It does happen. And at a place like Alabama, their tolerance for any of this stuff, nil.
And keep in mind, and I think I'm remembering the history correctly here, Bill Curry did not get fired at Alabama. He left and took the Kentucky job, similar to Tubby Smith at Kentucky in basketball. I don't think Curry got fired.
Maybe he didn't get fired, but I think the fact that he was 0-3 against Auburn, really, they wanted him gone. That's an unpardonable sin over there. You cannot do that. And again, Auburn has Alabama this year at Jordan-Hare Stadium. So I just think, look, I can give you a bunch of things I love about Kalen DeBoer. 15-3 versus top 25 all time. That goes back to his days at Fresno and Washington State. Washington. He is a good football coach. I'm not critical of Kalen DeBoer. I'm not critical of the hire. I'm not critical of the fit. All I know is that if you miss the playoff, an expanded playoff, okay, we're at 12 now. We're going to be up to 16. You can't do it 2 years in a row. You just can't. I don't think he survives if that happens. Now, I'm not predicting that will happen. But to your point, I'll start off maybe a little lower, like a 3. But the moment he loses a game, it's going to be 4. And the moment he loses another one, it's going to be 4.5. And if they miss the playoffs, it's going to be beyond 5. The meter will break. The third. What do they put in those little thermometers? What's in that?
Mercury.
Mercury. Yeah, the mercury will be splattered all over the wall. That's all I'm saying.
I just looked at this Bill Curry thing. So he actually he covertly accepted the Kentucky job. That's sort of a reverse Bear too, because Bear Bryant once did coach at Kentucky. and had a contract dispute. He was there 3 years. Now, coach, his 3 years at Alabama, best record he ever had his whole entire coaching career.
Yeah.
26-10. What took him from 7-5 to 9-3 to 10-2 in the Sugar Bowl. Did have the Auburn issue. He would have never gotten hired in today's climate. He was at his alma mater, Georgia Tech, and actually kind of set the table for Bobby Ross to do what he did there because they were terrible in 1980. He was 31, 43, and 4 with one bowl game in 7 years at Tech. Final year slipped from 9-2 to 5-5-1. And Alabama said, "Hey, come be our coach." How about that? That would never happen. Fans would,
it would never happen.
You would have
now.
a revolt on X if somebody hired a guy with a record. But it just goes to show you, sometimes the record can be deceiving, and sometimes it's where you're at. But yeah, he left. He got out. Fran got out. There's a lot of coaches that like, not this back in the day. And then you have the trust fund people that get on X because they're all younger. And that's I'm never getting punched in the face no matter what I say type of culture on that platform. I mean, Kalen DeBoer is a good enough football coach. He can walk away and go win someplace else. So we'll see.
He can. I think it's a bad look if you walk away from Alabama. For when Francione did it, different circumstance. Alabama was not the behemoth that Saban turned it into. You could make the argument back then, the resources of Alabama versus the resources of half a dozen other SEC schools, the difference wasn't really that big. Yeah, they had more trophies in the office, but nowadays, Alabama still is a crown jewel job. You don't walk away from that because there's too much heat coming from people on social media. Like that'd be a pretty weak move on Kalen's part. I think he even either goes well or he gets the boot. But make no mistake about it, Alabama is going to be one of the most fascinating stories this year in college football. All right, so you got Kalen at a 4, Kelly at a 3, Freeze and Napier at a 2, the final ones, and they'll go on Thursday, the final day in Atlanta. Sam Pittman, six-pack Sam, and Mark Stoops.
I hate to say a six-pack's probably about I don't know that they're fans. Hey, they're the Chad Morris, Brett Bielema, Chad Morris, and now Pittman era at Arkansas. It's made, and they're good at everything else, right? Yeah, I don't know that they're wanting to fire him, but it does feel like it's about time if they don't, if they go. I mean, you go 7-6 yet again. They have massive roster turnover every year. I don't know how you can sustain anything right now in Arkansas in football. And then you have Rhett Lashley, who's an Arkansas native, winning at SMU, and he'll probably continue to win. That's where I come down on these two. They're both at 4.5 to me. And it's for the same reason, 70-80% of the way, and then different reasons. I don't think Arkansas fans are tired of Sam Pittman. I think they like him. There's a lot that he's kind of like the John Daly of head football coaches.
Yes,
also a Razorback, right?
Yes,
he's one of them. Bobby Petrino's there to kind of clean, they have a good offense, he's back, which in a weird situation. But is it just time? And then you do have another coach out there that's winning at a school that you're probably, I don't know if you can outbid them money wise, but an Arkansas situation gets in their blood. Somebody on Chat Row asked about Dowell Loggins, the head coach at App State. He would have to be like Eli Drinkwitz and win big in 1 year at App State, and it fell to him. But there's other options out there, so it may just be time. And Pittman's getting older. He may not want it. He just want to go to the lake and fish and drink those cold ones. Mark Stoops, I think, overplayed his hand as it relates to his place at Kentucky, specifically butting heads with Cal. And I think after what happened last year, all the goodwill is gone. And I think that he's proven that he knows how to win at that particular institution. But I also think that he's proven that he's not willing to adapt or change at all. They're still going to run it up the middle. Still not going to have much of a passing attack. They're still going to try to play defense. They still kind of recruit like they recruit. Losing Vince Morrow to the rival to go be. I mean, that was their guy that got them in on all those Ohio kids. And then there's the other thing. Our South Carolina-based audience will recognize what I'm about to say. It's the Bobby Crimmins theory. And this happens to coaches sometimes. That A&M thing was done until A&M kind of pulled a fast one with Schiano. I mean, Mark Stoops is a lot of things. He ain't going to sit there and tell everybody he's taking the A&M job. And that's how it leaked that direction. Unless he is. It got out that it was Stoops. A&M people were like, no, go hire Elko. Then they're kind of the same guy anyway. And a lot of times when you go that far down the road, Mike, and then you come back, the magic is gone just because there's some trust lost. And I don't blame but Mark Stoops is not to blame for this, but it may be a situation where he could have gotten out while the getting was good and then kept staying and stayed. And then he finally was going to jump and it didn't work out. And he's got egg on his face a little bit. And all the things that helped him win are also reasons why he loses, with conservative calling on offense, can't get the offense right, that kind of thing. And then they had a lot of turnover. So I think just like Arkansas, it may be time. Just like Arkansas, you've got John Summerall at Tulane, who is a Kentucky alum, who was going to get the job had Stoops not stayed. And they've got basketball squared away, and it just may be, hey, here's the gold watch and your service award. But we gotta go because Summerall's not going to stay at Tulane forever. He almost was in the mix for North Carolina last year, and I absolutely believe he would take the job at UK. And he's a great coach. So those two schools are going to look around and see, we got a chance to upgrade, and it's been long enough. No offense. I just think Kentucky people are a little more put off by Stoops at this point. You could probably speak better to it than I could. Then Arkansas is just kind of like, well, at least he's better than Chad Morris.
Yeah, I would agree with your numbers, and I would say for two entirely different reasons. People love Sam Pittman, and they would if Arkansas could wave their magic wand, they would keep Pittman with Petrino and have those guys be a dynamic duo that two different personalities. One's the evil genius of play calling, and the other one is the guy that's relatable and everybody loves and can hopefully bring in big time recruits and teach toughness with offensive line play. That's what it was sold as, and I think the fans would love to see it work. But if it doesn't, they're ready to make a change. And everything you said about Mark Stoops is the reason why he is that 4.5 number. And I'm glad you mentioned Texas A&M because that was big. Now, it wasn't that long ago. They had 2 10-win seasons at Kentucky in a 4-year span. And I'm here to tell you that's really hard to do. Kentucky, the way I put it, as someone who's been there for 20-something years calling games, and as some may know, my better half is a lifelong Kentucky fan. So is her family. So I'm up there a lot. Kentucky is not just a basketball school. They love football. Mm-hmm. They support it. You go to Commonwealth Stadium on a Saturday, it's loud. They tailgate like the other SEC schools. They know the game. They love the game. They travel to bowl games. This whole thing, well, it was a basketball school. No. They expect to win in football. And so Mark gets there, and then you start looking at like the top 10 salaries in college football list, and it's like Saban, check, Kirby, check, Dabo, check. Mark Stoops? Yeah, they paid him. And I can tell you, I've seen them pump money into facilities there. They're not going on the cheap on football facilities. They're not like, well, we could have one of the best football practice facilities, but we'd rather put that money toward an extra basketball. No. Ask John Calipari. They spent plenty of what Mark Stoops wanted. Mark Stoops got. and the fans were in love with Mark Stoops. Now, the criticism of the style of play is always there. It's not the most entertaining in the world, and maybe they change it. They're on yet another offensive coordinator. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. They got a big game in week 2. It's the SEC opener. It's the only SEC game that Saturday. Ole Miss comes to town. It's not just whether or not they win, JC. It's how they look. They got completely smoked and pantsed by South Carolina last year in that same portion of the season early on in Lexington. And it was the beginning of the end for Kentucky's season and Mark Vandergriff and everything else. How they play against Ole Miss in week 2, I think, is going to be extremely crucial. All right, that's a good start to the heat meter. I've got these numbers written down. We're going to give updates on the heat meter throughout time. Yeah.
Terrible episode to do the heat meter for me because I had that song In the Heat of the Moment by Asia from the 1980s in my head. And so the word heat, it just ear holes me.
You have a framed Asia poster. How much did the guy selling that to you laugh when you bought it? 40-year-old virgin dimer. Just saying. All right, we got a couple quick things to do, and then we're getting out of here. Okay, Group 5, John. We love him. You know him. He's looking out for the little guy. We're not elitists here on JC and Morgan. We don't roll that way. We cover everybody. So here are the new coaches and then I'll let you give a quick synopsis of the 3, and then we'll get a couple of chats in, and then we're out of here. Sun Belt, number 1, App State, Dow Loggins, former OC at South Carolina, as well as quarterback coach, been an offensive coach for the Bears, Dolphins, Jets, and Titans. He's now a first-time head coach at 44 years of age. App State's a job that certainly, has pressure because they have a great track record of success. Marshall, number 2. I'm still trying to figure out why Charles Huff would leave Marshall for Southern Miss, but that's a whole other story. Tony Gibson is the new head coach. He's 52. He was the DC for NC State. He's a first-time head coach. And then Southern Miss, as I mentioned, Charles Huff, who I've interviewed a number of times in calling a couple of his games in a bowl game at Marshall. 42 years of old. He replaced Will Hall. Nobody has been able to win at Southern Miss in years. They are very poorly funded. It's just been a mess in Hattiesburg. Charles Huff, we'll see if he can turn it around. Quick thoughts, JC.
Marshall kind of screwed Charles Huff out of his contract and stuff because he was winning there. They had the big win at Notre Dame. And then they went with a guy that was kind of familiar to the state. I don't know what's going on there. I would rank them Huff 1. I mean, that's a good hire for Southern Miss.
Agreed.
But they opened with Mississippi State at home this year.
Yeah.
Scary game.
Scary game.
So he's the type of guy that can bring them back. Good recruiter, that kind of thing. Loggins would be 2. He's a lot different than the coaches that have coached at App State, kind of all were from the same tree. He's from Arkansas and the NFL. I mean, so he's a lot different. But he's got a good reputation as a head coach. Who knows what he'll do? Good offensive mind, but very different, a departure from what App State has normally done through the years. And then Tony Gibson. I would never hire anybody from NC State.
Your man, Dave Doran. Your pal, your pen pal.
8-4. Well, he's the winningest coach in NC State football history.
How long has he been there?
Gosh, a while.
8 years, 9 years?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he wins and he'll win when you don't expect him to win. But I just don't know, man. I just don't know. So
all right.
I'm like, well, Marshall should be in theory a good Sun Belt football job, place you can win. By the way, they're talking about East Carolina leaving the American and going to the Sun Belt.
I saw that. Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's very interesting. I still think the Sun Belt can be the preeminent Group 5 conference. With that type of move, that would only bolster its case. I'm big on the Fun Belt. Hey, Doug, I missed you guys, especially in the offseason. We need more of you. Need you guys to help answer some questions. Thanks for the kind words. Where are the lawmakers when it comes to putting limits on the transfer portal and a salary cap for players? Any movement in Congress? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say they're probably not doing anything with the portal, man. I mean, that gets into
You don't think they're going to
freedom of-
limit it to one?
Well, the one of the bills is the NCAA can set its own transfer rules. I just don't know that. I mean, maybe they will limit it to one, but NIL and stuff like that definitely. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Who are the surprise teams in the SEC this coming season? You got one that you might be partial to?
Good surprise or bad surprise?
Well, I think he's asking good surprise.
I'm still very intrigued by Mississippi State, and I know they're going to be picked last by everybody.
The Fighting Levies?
64 new players on the roster. 64. That means there's only
good?
20. There's not even a first and second team. There's not even a 22 left. How do we know what the hell they got? Blake Shapen's back. I have no idea. It's an exciting offense, and everybody gets all over Jeff Lebby, and certainly you never want to lose by 24 at home to Toledo, who wasn't even all that good at the end of the day. If you're an SEC football team that takes itself seriously, but I thought they played hard. I mean, look at that Ole Miss game. They were more fired up to be playing in that game than Ole Miss. And Ole Miss had a playoff berth on the line, allegedly. So I don't know. They got Arizona State coming in early. That's a foreign territory for the Sun Devils. It was a 7-point game last year. You win that, you survive the Rock at Hattiesburg in the opener. Get some confidence. You don't. I don't. I mean, I've looked at their portal additions and incoming players. There's some potential there. So I think they may surprise in the way that they're in a good way, that they're not going to be as bad as people think, and they'll pick off a couple of people here and there. I don't see. I don't think it's wise to just predict another 0-8 in the SEC, but he may be on that flaming list if that happens.
All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to say quickly, Auburn. If they survive Waco, I think Auburn. I don't think Jackson Arnold got a real fair shake last year. Oklahoma was a mess on offense. I'll say Auburn can put together a good season that might surprise some people under Hugh Freeze. Sahim or Sahim? Sahim? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. It'll be chaos in 20 years when Notre Dame has gone to 19 straight playoffs when we were talking about Notre Dame, Michigan. Yeah, I mean, I think love them or hate them, Notre Dame is just going to be a fixture that they can create their own formula to get in. They can make their own schedule. They talk about getting rid of the Southern Cal matchup. Like, they can make it so that they do no worse than 10-2 every year. And Notre Dame, like the expression in baseball, tie goes to the runner. When it comes to the committee, tie will go to Notre Dame if they're a borderline case every single time. Craig, in his Jim Nantz voice, says, "Hello, friends." Hello, Craig. Would Arkansas go after Loggins next if there's a change there in Fayetteville, JC?
Well, I mean, he's a favored native son. They love him out there. But he would have to be, it would be like Eli Drinkwitz, who was at App State for 1 year. And then, actually, I said never hire anybody from NC State, but Drinkwitz was the OC there, and it's worked out for him. So I'm sticking my foot in my mouth, my Dorn blindness. Yeah, I think he'd have to go put an 11-1 on the board, something like that, to justify it. And then I think a guy like Lashley, who I mentioned, and maybe a handful of others would have to turn it down.
Elder Llama points out Death Valley is in Baton Rouge. Yes, technically there are two, but whoever wins that game in week 1, they can claim their Death Valley is superior. Steven says LSU will start off 0-1, so he's predicting a Clemson win there. He also says, according to Diego Pavia, yeah, Diego has gotten pretty mouthy here lately. He says Vanderbilt's going to own the state of Tennessee. I don't know if anybody caught that interview, but I mean, he's just going on and on and on. Again, I like the kid's moxie, but sometimes you might want to pump the brakes a little bit before Vandy starts talking smack. And finally, Queen says DeBoer's first time at the House of Horrors will be interesting. They had Vince Gill ready to sing "Go Rest on High That Mountain" for Billy Napier. Yeah. Okay. And Micah's got, I'll get to one of Micah's 17 here. Coming in hot, Mike and JC. I mentioned JC, and he agrees. Determining talent in the pay-for-play era is way more difficult now. Mike, why do you think the brands will keep dominating? I think the brands will keep dominating because they always have, and they always find a way to do so. So I would gladly be wrong on that, by the way. Gladly be wrong on a little more diversity on teams competing for national championships. But I don't think there will be.
I think this. I think your good teams that win 12 or 14 team playoffs, it's hard. Those will be brands, Ohio State, Michigan, whoever. But I think you're also going to see some brands that are not dominant anymore based on I think that's more of when we talk about big brand, small brand. You're going to have a slew of elite programs that come way back to the pack, if not way down, go through a dark period because, different programs that have been great, they win in they've all built it in different ways. Right. And then in this era where money's a driving factor and all that, there's some big schools that are great in football that have been for years that don't have oil money or the whole state to themselves like Ohio State does with all that industry or like Notre Dame, so we'll see. It should be fascinating, but as far as like Texas Tech winning the college football playoff next year or something, no offense to the Red Raiders, I'll believe it. I believe something like that when I see it, Mike. TCU was as close as it's come. And they got beat 65-7. We've mentioned Oregon. Oregon's been great for a long time. They still haven't won one. And it hadn't been close either time they played for it. Well, it was. I'm sorry. They played Auburn close. Mm-hmm. But Ohio State, I just we will see what happens. But I think there's a lot of nuance to the discussion now, and who knows what will happen in the future.
How does everybody enjoy this fine show / podcast, JC, as we bid farewell to everybody out there?
All right. So we're still on the Chief Sports South Carolina YouTube channel. Also, our main college football YouTube channel from Chief Sports at College Football Forever Chief. You'll find highlights of the show and another show, SEC Sunday Night, which will be on again Sunday evening. That's an SEC-focused show here at Chief Sports. We just launched. Also, Spotify, Apple, Google, Podbean, iHeart, Audible, Google Play.
We're everywhere.
Everywhere. A podcast version, which sometimes that takes about 24 hours, but lately it hasn't been. The Mad Dog and I have been working on a little trick for that. So be sure to check us out. Rate us 5 stars if you can on the Apple Pod. Helps people find that. Certainly appreciate everybody listening.
Appreciate everybody growing in the numbers each and every week as we're coming up. We're encroaching on 300 career episodes. That'll be here before you know it. Our thanks again to our producer, Phil Mad Dog Mullinax. For JC, it is Mike. Again, we're presented by Advocare, advocare.com. Don't forget the promo code. Save yourself 20% off. Guys, gals, we'll see you next week on JC and Morgan.